So one patient was brought up, he was left at his work site with a head injury and he was super sick.
A patient told me she couldn't make it to her visit and I asked her why. She said, well, I was on the bus had stopped earlier than the bus stop. And the bus driver had said, it looks like there's some ICE agents ahead.
A couple that was originally from Cuba, but ever since this election, their anxiety levels have again increased because of their status.
There was a diabetic patient who had run out of her diabetes medication, and she was afraid to come in and get it.
You know, I have one patient who's a single mom. She has 3 kids. She works in a hotel. She has diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, depression.
He got well enough to wake up, answer questions, and make a phone call. And he hobbled out of the ICU with one leg with fear of being deported. The level of fear is so much higher than it was at any given point because the president that we have does not want to provide health care for undocumented people.
She had to get off the bus early. You know, she obviously didn't want to be deported or be stopped. And so she missed her visit. I think that there's a large amount of consequences when you have these fear policies in place.
The husband is actually somebody who has now developed full-on generalized anxiety disorder.
When she came in, her blood sugar level was through the roof.
You know, if she doesn't get her meds, she can't work. She'll be too tired. Her kids won't eat.
So I tried to get him a wheelchair. I was like, if you're gonna leave, like at least let me get you a wheelchair. And he didn't want it because he just wanted to get out of there. So he's full body, half body cast all the way up to the hip.
Yeah, I felt really bad for her, you know, because it usually takes our patients hours on public transportation to kind of get to our clinic.
Because he's so worried about what's going to happen if he has to leave this country and go back to a country where he hasn't been for the majority of his life.
I work in critical care, so I deal with really sick people. I deal with underserved populations. I deal with homeless people. I deal with the rich people that are super privileged and need their pillows fluffed. And I deal with people that are from Nigeria, Sudan, and Ethiopia. I had a man come in, he was undocumented. He had a heart attack ×2. They didn't take him to the cath lab so that you can get rid of the blockage, but he was undocumented, so he didn't fit for that type of procedure. So when he was brought to me, he was very sick. The blockage was still there, and he ended up having to be intubated, which means he had to have a tube placed into his mouth, down to his throat, and hooked up to a ventilator so that he could breathe. He was comatose when I received him, and he started to wake up, which was amazing to me, and I was really excited about it, and I communicated with him mostly in Spanish. And when I stepped out of the room for about 5 minutes, I came back and his breathing tube was out. He pulled it out. He told me that he was afraid that he was going to get sent back to Mexico.
There was a mother who came in and brought in her 2 children to get their yearly annual physicals. She wasn't documented, but her kids were born here. And she told me, you know, everything's fine at home. It's just, I'm seeing families being split apart on TV and raids happening around our neighborhood. I'm just definitely afraid that I'm going to be taken away from my children. I think there's just this overall sense of uncertainty.
I do have a middle-aged woman that I've been seeing for probably about 6 months or so. She has a history of some chronic back pain, also some insomnia, and headaches as well. We were just discussing, you know, what are things that she can do to try to help in terms of on an everyday kind of basis, but in general to help reduce the stress level in her life. And then she tells me that she's like, well, my biggest source of stress is that I have a teenage son who's not here, he's in another country, and every day he's getting bullied by gangs. And every day that's what my cause of stress, I call to try to make sure, you know, and my true stress is, has he survived the day? You know, she's like, before this election, I was thinking, okay, there's a way that maybe I can try to bring him to the United States to be with me. But since the election, now I'm trying to think about, is there a way that I can get him to Canada?
There's patients who are coming in and saying, can I get extra bottles of medication in case I get deported? Can I get copies of my children's medical records in case we get deported? And of course, we're giving them everything that they're asking for, but we're also letting them know that this is a safe place.
There's one woman who has autoimmune hepatitis and she's undocumented. She has 4 daughters and her husband's a diabetic. If they both stop coming, it would be terrible for their children and they have grandchildren. It would just be like, you know, devastating to the family unit.
If you can't trust the people who are there to help you, I think it creates a really dangerous kind of society.
I think that to a certain degree I've come to start to see my role and in clinic as it's a lot of damage control, with stories coming out where people are going to the courts for whatever reason and then actually getting picked up by ICE from there. You start to wonder, are there other establishments that I should be worried about?
There are protected spaces where immigration cannot enter without a warrant. And so health facilities are those safe spaces.
They come here because they trust us and we have a long standing in the community. So, and everyone they interface with is bilingual.
I think it's important for undocumented people to get health care because they're people. If I went to another country and passed out and cracked my skull on the ground, I would want someone to take care of me for sure. We all deserve health care.
So we're talking about a lot of the hardworking people who make this country run every day.
I firmly believe that a toll of these communities not seeking health care early on to try to help control their medical conditions is going to be exactly what we're trying to prevent with primary care. So it's going to be decreased productivity, decrease in well-being, increased health spending. Because the fact of the matter is that these patients, we're going to see them at some point in our healthcare system. And if we don't see them early on in our primary care clinics to try to do primary prevention and secondary prevention, we're going to then end up doing damage control when we see them in our hospitals and with our specialists.
This is a country of immigrants. All of the things that I was awarded and provided as a citizen of this country should be available to everyone because of a belief in the ideal of democracy.
We treat all patients at this clinic and we have undocumented patients, so we don't turn anyone away for any reason. And it's really what all doctors should do is treat everyone. They're just people.